At the beginning, a girl was heard saying that trying something better than alcohol would be worth it, describing it as the sound of someone's voice that could take a person somewhere else. She whispered those words near a boy's ear. The scene then shifted to a school building. Inside a classroom, a boy sat at his desk while students around him chatted. From behind, someone asked if another had watched a certain stream, and the reply came that they had. Around him, classmates made plans. One asked what the others were doing after class, another mentioned going to karaoke yesterday, and a third suggested going again today. Listening to them, the boy thought to himself in disbelief, then opened his AirPods. As he placed them in his ears, he reflected that nothing good ever came from getting too close to people. Still, he wondered how they had so much energy for this every day. People needed space, he thought, and he reminded himself that this was the distance he had chosen to maintain from everyone, not because he needed a reason to be alone. Suddenly, someone pulled his AirPods from his ears. A girl greeted him with a cheerful good morning and asked what he was listening to. Turning, he realized it was Sasaki Senpai. With a smile, she asked to listen too. Placing an AirPod in her ear, she let out a surprised sound, then suddenly pulled it out with a blushing face. She shouted in embarrassment, asking if it was something lewd. Hajime panicked and quickly denied it, stammering that it was ASMR. Flustered, he tried to explain, saying that ASMR was a way to relax by listening to gentle sounds like whispers or soft tapping that could make one's skin tingle and help them calm down. For him, the main trigger was whispers, and he added that trigger meant the type of sound someone really liked. Realizing how strange he sounded, he quickly apologized, insisting it must have seemed weird or gross. To his surprise, Sasaki shook her head and said she didn't think so. Smiling warmly, she remarked that she could tell how much he loved it, and that it was nice to have something he was so passionate about. Blushing, Hajime tried to compose himself, but then she leaned closer and whispered in his ear, asking if it wouldn't feel even better live. Startled, he backed away in shock. Sasaki laughed it off, saying that, speaking of which, the CD he had given her was amazing. Flustered and red-faced, Hajime muttered that he was glad to hear that. Just then, another student called for her notes, and she excused herself, telling Hajime she would see him later. When asked what that was about, she replied casually, "Just something." Left alone, Hajime put his AirPods back in and thought about Sasaki Nene. She was a second-year student, crowned the new star of campus in a university contest. With her stunning looks and easygoing personality, she was constantly confessed to, though she turned them all down. On top of that, she was adored by the girls as well, making her popular with everyone. And yet, this was how he had first met her. He remembered that someone had once called out to him, asking if he was Soda Hajime. Turning, he had seen Sasaki Nene herself introducing herself as a second year, smiling as she asked if he could help her pick out a computer since he was good with them. From then on, she had started chatting with him occasionally. Hajime admitted to himself that just because he was quiet didn't mean he was a walking PC manual. He wasn't good at dealing with Sasaki not because he disliked her, but because he simply struggled. Sitting behind him, she would sometimes stare, and Hajime couldn't help but think that she was totally his type. Still, she felt far out of his league. He knew his place, and yet, whenever she teased him, he couldn't stop overthinking it. He convinced himself that she probably treated everyone the same. Even so, when she spoke to him, he felt the stares of others burning into him. Later, sitting on a bench, he decided to escape those thoughts and placed his AirPods back in. With a small smile, he thought of Ototsu-san, a chill streamer who had just reached 100,000 subscribers. Listening to the familiar sounds, his expression softened as he let himself relax. Suddenly, someone shouted, calling out, "Ah, Hajime-kun, there you are." Hajime looked up and, surprised, recognized Sasaki Senpai. She reminded him that she had said, "See you later." With a tense expression, he thought to himself whether that later from before had actually meant this moment. He wondered why she would come looking for him, while she herself repeated aloud the same question. Blushing, he scolded himself not to overthink it, insisting in his mind that it was gross to do so. Hesitantly, he asked if she had needed something. She replied that she couldn't talk to him without needing a reason. In his mind, he begged her to stop messing with his head. She then admitted that she did in fact have a reason. He thought that he knew it, deciding not to fall for it again, and asked what it was. She explained that she actually streamed too, and had been looking for someone to help her out. Hajime was stunned, thinking in disbelief that his senpai was also a streamer. She sat beside him on the bench while he exclaimed in shock if she meant him. His thoughts panicked over why she was so close. He stammered that she could ask anyone else for help. She, however, replied that she hadn't told anyone else and felt that he could keep a secret. He stood up, claiming that it wasn't as though he had anyone to tell anyway. She pointed out that he was always helping her with tech stuff. He argued that even this level of closeness already drew too much attention, his face tense, but she smiled and told him to just ignore it. He thought inwardly that he couldn't. She then asked if he didn't want to. His mind screamed at her to stop since it made it sound like she was flirting. Blushing, he stammered that it wasn't as though he didn't want to. It was just before she interrupted, offering to pay him. He repeated the word in surprise. She stood up, promising to give him whatever he wanted, anything at all. Leaning close to his ear, she repeated that he had heard her correctly. He backed away nervously, repeating the word, anything, while she confirmed playfully with a, anything. His mind spiraled, wondering if anything could even mean her. He questioned what was going on and what the catch might be, worrying that it could be some punishment game or setup. More importantly, he panicked about the distance between them as her face drew closer. As she leaned in, he stammered, barely managing to speak, before suddenly running away in embarrassment, shouting an apology. Watching him flee, she smiled mischievously, calling after him that he should come find her if he changed his mind. The scene shifted to later that night in Hajime's apartment. Sitting at his desk, he thought back on the day's events, asking himself what that had been about. He wondered if she had just been messing with him. He admitted that it wasn't the closeness he hated but rather that he couldn't understand why she got close to him. He simply didn't want to misread her and embarrass himself. Glancing at the time, he realized it was already almost 7 p.m. and cursed that it was so late. As the announcement of a stream's beginning came on, he quickly put on his headset. Hearing the familiar start, he relaxed, reflecting that Otatsu-san's voice was always the same, always at the right distance. For him, this was the only time he could forget about what people thought. He smiled, noting that her taste in games matched his perfectly. Suddenly, he remembered that his senpai had mentioned she streamed too and regretted not asking her channel name. But just then, the streamer's voice cut out in shock before abruptly ending the broadcast with an apology. Surprised, Hajime asked aloud what had happened, insisting it was far too early to end. The monitor displayed that the stream had ended. He put down his headset, and then heard noises coming from the apartment next door. Standing up, he muttered that it must be his neighbor. He recalled that someone had moved in just the previous week and, guessing it was a woman, hoped she wouldn't be too loud, since that would be annoying. The banging continued. Checking his phone, he saw it was already close to 11:30. He considered contacting the landlord, but dismissed it as too late. Lying on his bed, he decided to bear with it for the night. But then, suddenly, a scream rang out. A woman's voice cried for help, begging someone to stay away. His expression turned tense as he realized it was coming from the next apartment. Horrified, he wondered if it was a crime scene. In a panic, he decided he had to call 110 but then argued with himself that it would be too late. Grabbing a mop for protection, he rushed to the neighbor's door and rang the bell with a trembling hand, calling out nervously to ask if they were all right, introducing himself as the neighbor. The door flung open, and to his shock, Sasaki senpai threw herself into his arms, hugging him tightly and crying out. Flustered and blushing, he stammered her name, asking why she was there. She explained tearfully that there had been a mouse. He repeated the word in disbelief, just as the mouse squeaked and ran past. Both of them stumbled and fell, with her landing on top of him, still clinging tightly in fear. She admitted that it had shown up in the middle of her stream, which had terrified her. Realization struck Hajime, and he blurted out the truth, connecting her voice. Stunned, he called her Ototsu. With a cheeky smile, she admitted it, teasing him with a playful oopsie, confirming that she was indeed his favorite Ototsu, his next-door neighbor, and his senpai. She added that since he had rushed over, he was now helping her. Panicked, he denied it, insisting he had only come because of the screaming. But she reminded him that he had already received his reward. Confused, he asked what reward she meant, only to look down in shock, blushing furiously as he realized his hands were pressed against her chest. She teased him further, reminding him that she had promised anything, and remarked that asking for her as payment was bold. Mortified, he stammered that it was a misunderstanding, but she declared that there were no takebacks, and that he was helping. He sweated nervously as she leaned close to his ear, whispering that otherwise, she would have to tease him more. In that moment, he thought to himself that with just a little whisper from his senpai, his quiet little world had already begun to collapse. The scene shifted to the next day, showing the school building. Hajime was walking through the hallway when he saw Sasaki ahead, walking toward him while talking with two girls. As Sasaki passed by, he told Hajime in his ear that he would be waiting in his room. The girls walked away, and Hajime's face grew tense. One of the girls asked Sasaki if he had just said something, but Sasaki simply replied that he had not. Hajime thought to himself that after discovering his favorite streamer was actually Sasaki Nene Senpai, the most popular senior on campus, things had changed. He repeated to himself that after finding out the truth, and now, on this day, he was about to ring the bell of her apartment. While standing there, he blushed and thought that she had actually invited him to her apartment, to Senpai's room. When Sasaki opened the door, she welcomed him warmly, telling him that she had been waiting and urging him to come inside. Hajime noticed that this was how she dressed at home, and in his mind he admitted that she looked far more relaxed than usual. She turned with a smile and explained that he was the first guy to ever come into her place, just so he knew. Hajime blushed, and when she asked him what was wrong, he stammered that it was nothing and admitted awkwardly that she was using her stream voice. She corrected him by saying that it was actually her natural voice. Blushing harder and clutching his chest, Hajime thought nervously that he might throw up from how tense he felt. He noted that she smelt sweet but also strangely sour, and tried to steady himself with deep breaths. Inside, he saw that her room was messy beyond belief, and when she mentioned that it was kind of messy and asked him to just ignore it, he immediately reacted by screaming while sitting down on the ground. Sasaki asked what was wrong, but he stammered, unable to answer. She casually explained that for some reason, the mess just kept piling up, and with a wink and a sly smile, she said it was a girl's secret. Hajime was stunned, questioning if this really was Sasaki-senpai, and thought to himself that calling her relaxed was putting it nicely. She sat down in her desk chair while Hajime, who still refused to sit among the trash, thought to himself that he would honestly rather not sit at all. Sasaki thanked him again for helping her out, but he replied that it was fine, even though he was sitting uncomfortably on the floor. He thought bitterly that she had basically forced him to help. Out loud, he pointed out that if she had just admitted who she really was from the start, things might have been different. She asked if he would have said yes right away, and when he hesitated, she concluded that he wouldn't have. She told him she knew he was the type to keep a respectful distance from his favorite streamer, and she hadn't wanted to pressure him into helping by revealing the truth. Hajime realized that she had him completely figured out and that she had actually been considerate. He thought that it was something only Odo To-san would do and addressed her as senpai. Suddenly, Hajime felt something in his hand. Looking down, he realized it was her panties, and in shock he blurted that it could not be. She laughed and explained that she had left it there when she went to shower earlier. His mind panicked as he thought that it was freshly worn and that this was not something she should be so casual about. His eyes drifted toward her lower body, and he thought nervously, wondering if she was even wearing anything underneath at that moment. She noticed his gaze, smiled and teased him by asking if he wanted to find out. He turned bright red and immediately dropped the panties, shouting for her to take them back. Sasaki laughed and picked them up, and Hajime stammered, changing the subject by asking what exactly she wanted him to do. She sat down on the floor and suddenly declared his name, Soda Hajime. Hajime was shocked when she looked at him seriously and asked him to go out with her. The scene then shifted to a mall, where people were staring at Hajime because he was wearing a cap, glasses, and a mask. Sasaki approached him from behind and whispered in his ear, asking if she had kept him waiting, before apologizing for being late with a cheerful smile. Hajime tensed up and thought to himself that senpai was way too close. He quickly walked away, but she stopped him and questioned what was with his outfit. He admitted that he did not want to stand out too much, but she replied that if anything, it only made him look more suspicious. People were staring at him, and Sasaki, with a tense expression, reached up to remove his glasses. She declared that she would be taking them and told him that there were to be no disguises on a date. She said he was not allowed to hide his face on such a special occasion. As she tucked the glasses into her chest, Hajime panicked and thought that she had actually said date. He wondered how she had even recognized him under the disguise. As they walked together, he thought that the distance between them meant it could not really be a date, but then again, for someone as outgoing as her, maybe the word date had an entirely different meaning. Still, he admitted to himself that she was amazing, since everyone around them was turning their heads to look at her. They entered a building, and Sasaki mentioned that her microphone had been acting up lately, so she hoped he could help her choose a new one. Hajime realized that when she had said go out, she had literally meant going out shopping, and he felt relieved but also oddly happy. He muttered that honestly she did not need to go out with him just to choose a microphone. Sasaki tilted her head and asked teasingly if she had perhaps got his hopes up. When he turned around in shock and asked what she meant, she leaned closer and asked if maybe he had been thinking of something a little naughty. Hajime blushed furiously and insisted that, of course not, that he was just helping her out. He admitted nervously that for someone as popular as her to ask a gloomy guy like him to hang out, it felt like a honey trap. Sasaki, standing close to him, told him with a straight face that she would never do something like that to him. Hajime blushed and asked what she meant by that, but Sasaki quickly spotted a microphone and exclaimed excitedly, asking what he thought of it. Hajime was stunned as he watched her enthusiasm and thought to himself that he seriously did not understand how extroverts thought. He pointed out that she would not even be on camera, so the appearance of the microphone should not matter. She simply replied that cute was justice. Hajime repeated the phrase, wondering, and admitted that perhaps it really was justice. He asked if she was going for an idol aesthetic, but she firmly stated that a face reveal was a total no-go because she would never be able to handle it. Hajime then told her that her voice was great and that the microphone suited her. He picked another one, muttering like a nerd about the options, and then apologized for rambling. Blushing, he admitted that he must have sounded strange, but Sasaki assured him it was fine. She picked up a headset, placed it on his head, and told him it was nice. Then, speaking into the microphone, she told him that he really cared about Odo too, that he had been watching her closely, and that it made her happy. Hajime froze and stared at her, moved deeply, before telling her that it was perfect. He took off the headset and, with a serious face, declared that she was absolutely perfect and amazing. Sasaki blushed at his words. The scene shifted again to the school building, where some girls were chatting. One girl asked if the other had heard about Nene, and the other replied that she had not. The first girl explained that she had seen Nene hanging out with some gloomy guy the other day. The other reacted in disbelief, questioning what she would be doing with him, but then added that Nene did talk to everyone anyway. Another girl who overheard their chat laughed to herself, repeating the words that Nene was hanging out and seemed amused by the idea. Meanwhile, Hajime was muttering the words "an angel" to himself as he looked at Sasaki, who was blushing beside him. The two of them were still at the store together.
By the way, if you enjoyed the video, maybe consider liking and subscribing, pretty please?